is a story of adventure, football, and community that gladdened the hearts of young children in the early 2000s all around Africa and even beyond Africa. All the way from South Africa, it spread across through sheer marketing brilliance that captured the minds and hearts of young kids in the early 2000s. As a matter of fact, this were before the days of Instagram, of scrolling through. This was actually a platform that really spread and ran deep. Yes, you're right. I'm talking about the Supa Strikas comic phenomenon. So Supa Strikas actually was founded as a result of 4 South African creatives who came together because of their love for their favorite British comic book, Roy of the Rovers. They came together to mix the whole idea of culture, football, adventure, and vibrant storytelling to build the brand Supa Strikas. Now, before we knew it, the publication began to spread. It went from sub-Saharan Africa, from Tanzania to Botswana, and it eventually landed on the shores of Nigeria in the year 2001. It wasn't just a good storytelling success. The Supa Strikas brand was one that had a great distribution strategy and a great localization strategy. It made everyone feel like they were all part of the story. As a matter of fact, everyone kind of felt each episode was talking about someone they knew. So in Nigeria, if you read Supa Strikas, you most likely heard about Shegz. And I'm sure you felt Shegz was in every other Supa Strikas, but no. What they simply did was they knew they had a framework for their story. So they created lead characters with local names, localizing the comic book in such a way that everyone in every country has a sense of ownership and belonging. They also played around the underdog tale, making it look like this person had to actually fight to become part of the football team, and that football team now eventually has to fight to become winners. Everyone loves an underdog tale, don't you? They also played around a sweet spot, which is the love of football. Now, bringing this all together created phenomenal cultural revolution and marketing success known as the Supa Strikas comics. Now, there was also something, and I'm sure if I ask you, you'll be able to relate, which is how did you get your copy? It also had a very phenomenal distribution strategy. They made sure that it was put in the weekend papers so that when parents bought the newspapers during the weekend, they would find a copy there and they'll have something for the children. They ensured that it was in every Texaco filling station, which was one of the brands that came on board on the comic book. Like for example, I got mine when I went to Mr. Biggs and I went to go and buy food, and my parents took me there on Sunday. That's where I got my own update episode. So I'm sure we could all relate with it, and all of us knew how we got this particular episode, which was really, really beautiful. But Supa Strikas' impact did not stop within the borders of Africa. It actually expanded to various nations of the world, which made it actually become one of the world's largest comic book distribution by monthly publication. And what that bettered actually for the brand was that it now became a TV show, it was acquired, and eventually became household name beyond just the comic books that we know. What are some lessons that we could actually learn from the Supa Strikas success? And what are some ideas, that we can steal to be able to replicate such success? Number one is the novelty and innovation. Supa Strikas actually was released at a time where the children entertainment segment was actually lacking great content that reflected African culture. At that time, you couldn't really even find African comics to read. Any comics you read were foreign comics. The comic book landscape in Africa was really not vibrant. And for that reason, they brought something unique. And they also piggybacked on something which I mentioned earlier, which is the love for the sport of football. They knew that every young kid and every young boy out there had a fantasy of playing football, or even just watching football or follow their favorite teams. So what better platform or what better interest point to hack on than the love of young boys and young girls of football? And this was the way they were able to capture the hearts and minds of young children in the early 2000s. And what is the next lesson I think I would like us to learn from this is the fact that whenever we are bringing out a product to market, we need to think about an unmet market gap and find a point of similarity that we can connect with that unmet market gap in a way that will make adoption very easy. 2, relatable storytelling. The team that actually brought the Supa Strikas comic books were not actually very lazy. They were actually very strategic. What they did was they created a story. All we could see was Shegz Okoro, for example, for me in Nigeria. And I'm sure in your various countries it had different names. They localized the brand and made it look like every single boy or girl who was going through certain challenges that were relatable to them, and give them certain inspiration and aspiration and battles to win that was relatable to the young children. So it wasn't just some comic book, it was some book of inspiration. As a matter of fact, you had young boys and girls going around when they were playing in their local league or in their small school leagues, calling themselves Shegz. And it became a name that everyone who played very good soccer and who dribbled very well and who scored great goals was called Shegz Okoro. And that was so much relatability that was initially put by the creators of the comic in a way that every young kid that's seeing it could see himself in Shegz Okoro or whatever name he was given in your country. The third thing will be effective distribution and availability. Yes, I mean the Supa Strikas team were able to ensure that the distribution of these comics were where their consumers and their customers will meet. Let me explain. So typically the consumers of these comics were children, and the customers that would typically buy it for them were their parents. What they did was, parents in Nigeria, for example, parents had the culture of taking their children to Mr. Biggs on a Sunday or during the weekends. So they ensured that it was available where parents and the children typically met. What they now also did was they also found a way to insert it in what the customers, which is the parents, would also buy their newspapers and then find it within the newspaper and also give it to their children. So there was no competition for attention. It was something that was available for everybody, and it was actually at a very, very accessible price point. As a matter of fact, most places were giving it away for free. As soon as you bought a meal, you got a copy of Supa Strikas, which was very, very incredible. So those are three major lessons that we've learned from the success of Supa Strikas, how they got into the hearts and minds of young kids in the early 2000s. Now, what happened? We don't still see Supa Strikas on the streets anymore. We don't see young children reading Supa Strikas. And you might say, are they still a success? Oh yes, they are still a success, because in 2019, they were actually acquired by Moonbug Entertainment, the guys behind the phenomenal Coco Melon. And what then happened was they took that franchise and they turned it into an animated series. Now you could see young kids watching the animation of the comic. I mean, that is just sheer brilliance on the part of Moonbug, because they saw something that has worked as a comic, something that became a global success just as a comic, and they knew that this is phenomenal storytelling that can scale beyond the borders of Africa, which is why I think they invested in it. I mean, those four guys, I'm sure they made a lot of money from this singular idea that they created from their rooms in South Africa. Lessons we can learn from this is that when we are trying to build something global, especially when we are thinking of something global from Africa, we do not have to do something foreign. We can build something that has its cultural values with intelligent distribution and accessibility and great storytelling that will cause the hearts and minds of people to be gravitated towards it in a way it leaves an indelible imprint in their hearts and inspire them to be able to become global success. Now, if you want me to do another episode of how Supa Strikas achieved that great success from a business standpoint, do comment below. And also, please comment and let me know where you got your own copy of the Supa Strikas from and what was your own Supa Strikas experience. Thank you very much for watching, and do have a great day.